Erev Torah B'tai. I want to tell you something interesting that the Rambam says in the laws of Avodah Zarah. He says that a person is not allowed to read any of these books, which are talking about Avodah Zarah. Different religions, the way they do their things, the way they understand their things, the way they do their ceremonies and all kinds of things like this. A person is not allowed to read them. Some people tell me, they say, one person I knew, he told me, he says, I read the New Testament, he says, just like as literature, I read it like that, But the truth is, you're not allowed to do this. Who gave you permission to read these things? Same thing, there are some people who read the Quran, they say, I want to read, I want to interested to see what's in there. This religion, that religion. So the Rambam tells you, don't read any of these things. Because what happens is that once a person starts to read them, his heart starts to go, to be attracted to that. What happens is he can, become lo aleinu, he can leave the religion altogether, and think about Avodah Zarah. Not only is he's not allowed to read these things, but he's not allowed to talk about them, he's not allowed to mention them also. He's not allowed to mention the names of the Avodah Zarah, this Avodah Zarah, this Avodah Zarah. You cannot mention his name. That's why, we, the religious Jews, when we talk about, this, Yimach Shemo, Yeshu, we don't use the real name or the names that the Goyim call. We use like a nickname, why? Because we don't want to say the name of Avodah Zarah. This is the reason why we don't mention that. The real name or some name that they use. Even that we're not allowed to do, to even mention their gods. And also says the Rambam, you shouldn't even think about these things. Think about these religions, how they do and what they do and what they think and what they believe. Not allowed to even think about that.
Poisoning your mind.
Exactly, it's poisoning your mind. That's exactly the point, So a person has to be careful about all these things, Never. Not only that, the Rambam says another thing. He says you shouldn't even look, at the Avodah Zarah. To look at it also, it makes you tameh. There are many pictures that they have. Go. You see around, their churches. They have all kinds of statues and pictures and all these things. The Rambam says you're not allowed to look at these things. You're not allowed to look at the Avodah Zarah. This is also it's a bad influence on you to see these things. And all these things are written in the Torah, in the Sefer Vayikra. It's written there, all these things. Don't learn about it, don't ask about it, don't think about it, don't look at it, nothing. Don't go into any of these things. I remember when I was giving a class, here at the shul, there was one guy who used to come in, and talk about these things all the time. I told him, I said, listen, why do you keep talking about these things? I think you're a little bit, obsessed with this kind of stuff. Why do you talking about it all the time? So he tells me, I don't believe in it. Yeah. So then why do you talk about it? That's the most important thing for you to talk about these things? Why do you talk about it all the time? This is also, avera. A person, it's a sin for a person to talk about these things also. Why are you always talking about it? Talk about the Torah. Talk about Avodat Hashem. Right? Talk about these kinds of things. That's what you should be talking about. Not Avodah Zarah, any of these things, right? Which we said. This is not the way, to be a Jew. Talk about these things. And the truth is, that if a person, what happens is like this. Many of the things that they say in these books, you know what it is, right? The chokhmah, some of the chokhmah there comes from our Torah. They stole it, they steal. They stole our chokhmah, and they put it in their books, So if you see their book and you see, this, why you're saying that? Because it comes from our religion. They stole it, But the thing is, they steal some things from our religion, but they also put some of their nonsense, shtuyot, nonsense, shiganot. They put their own stuff. They mix it together, little Avodah Zarah, little Torah, little this, little that, right? It's like, smorgasbord, Right? That's no good. That's how the religion gets distorted like this, when people are looking at these kinds of things. So, a person has to be very careful about that. Okay, that's one thing I want to mention. Another thing, I wanted to say is that there's something very strong brought down in the Zohar Kadosh, regarding a person who does Zikuy Harabim. So you know what that means? That is machazir people to do teshuvah. It talks about this for many pages in the Zohar Kadosh. How the big zechut, that a person has if he brings people back to do teshuvah. He teaches them Torah. He teaches them to do mitzvot. They say, right, that a person like this, who brings people back to the teshuvah, especially people who are sinners, they're avaryanim, they're sinners, these people. So what happens is that he spreads the Torah with everybody, and he brings them close to the teshuvah. So this person, he has the biggest olam haba. The person who brings people back to do teshuvah. The biggest olam haba is this person. Because why? He's taking people away from the tumah, from the sinful lifestyle, from the sitra achra, from the tameh, and he's bringing them to the kedusha, the side of Hashem. So you know what they say, right? That Avraham Avinu, it says about him and Sarah, that there were souls that they made. That's what it says in Bereshit, in Parshat Lech Lecha. When they went to leave, Ur Kasdim, they took all the souls that it says there in the Chumash that they made. They made souls, neshamot. What does that mean? They made them. So that's what it means. The Zohar Kadosh is telling you that a person who brings somebody to do teshuvah or to be mitgayer, to convert to Judaism, he made that soul. Hashem says, you made him. You made that neshama. It's your zechut. You brought him back to the teshuvah. You brought him back to the side of the kedusha. So a person who does this, he is considered to be the biggest tzaddik, and he has the biggest schar in the olam haba. Person who does these kinds of things, So that's what they say about Avraham Avinu. This was his specialty, this was his miktzah, his profession. He used to do this, They say that what happened was like this, right? It says in the Chumash that Avraham Avinu opened up Eshel. That's what it says, right? Eshel. What is Eshel? What is that? So there's different definitions about what that is, But the thing is that it was a place where people would come and he would give them food, to eat. Okay, so he would serve them food, bring them in, he would tell them, oh, come, I have some good food for you. Yeah. So, but then what happened was that when they sit down to eat, he would tell them, oh, wait, 1 second, before you start, right? First you gotta do natilat yadayim, right? Natilat yadayim. Then number 2, you have to do bracha, right? Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Oh. So they would tell him, what is this all about? What is this bracha, natilat yadayim? What are you doing? What is this stuff? So you explain to them, there's only one God, and you have to bless him when you eat the food. And you have to do this, and you have to do that, and then you got to do Birkat Hamazon afterwards when you finish. So he would bring them in like this, to zechut, to give them zechut, to bring them to the side of Kedusha. He made them. He made their neshamot, these people. He turned them into tzaddikim. This is what happened. So little by little, and then what would happen was like this, when they were eating, the seudah, he would tell them, do you know, he would teach them some Torah. Do you know this? Do you know that? Do you know this? Do you know that? And what happened was that they would say, I don't know, I don't believe what you're saying. This is I don't know, I'm not sure, if you're right. They would tell him, like this. They were skeptical. They don't know nothing, these people, So that's what happens sometimes, when a person has no Torah education, he didn't go to yeshiva, he didn't go and learn with the Chachamim, Talmud. He didn't learn, Shulchan Aruch. So what happens is you tell him something, and he says, I don't believe you. What are you talking about? That doesn't understand what you're telling him. So what happens is, people like this, it's a mitzvah to help them because they don't know nothing. They're like innocent children. Tinok shenishba. They don't know anything about Torah. So what you have to do is, like people like this who are in the side of Tumah because they don't know anything. They don't know any Torah. You bring them in, you bring them close to Hashem. Some Hashem says, you're like Avraham Avinu, you're the same thing. So they say about Avraham Avinu, what he would do is like this, if they would say to him, I don't believe this, I don't believe this, I don't believe this. You know what he would do? He would sit with them for hours, and convince them. He would argue with them. No. And they would go like this, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours like this, he would sit with them. Until he convinced them, that he was right. So he spent with them much time, on each person. Why? Because he wanted to bring them really to do teshuvah, to have emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the way he would do, So a person who does this, mezaket harabim, it says in the Zohar Kadosh, they give him in Olam Haba 70 olamot, right? 70 worlds. Ginuzot, right? They're hidden worlds. And nobody else is allowed to take these worlds except the person who does Zikui Rabin, who's Machazir Leteshuvah to Anashim. He teaches them Torah, he brings them back to Avodat Hashem. So this is the biggest thing, That's what it says also in the book Chovot Lebaot. It says over there that the biggest mitzvah that a person can do is to bring people to do teshuvah, to bring them to the side of kedusha. What happens is, that it strengthens the strength of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the malchut of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it weakens the side of the sitra achra, the satan. When you bring people to teshuvah, because you're bringing them from here, replacing them over here, you're making them into tzaddikim before they were Rasha'im. So it says, you made those souls, you made those neshamot. So because you made them, Hashem says, you know what, I'm going to give you more olam haba than anybody else. Wow. Nobody's considered to be like gadol like this. That's why all the big chachamim, who are in the generation, every generation, they also make things like this, programs to bring to people to do teshuvah, because what happens is, that these programs bring people in, and they're able to pull people in back to do teshuvah. All the big chachamim that we had in this generation, the big tzaddikim, they were doing this. So, this is exactly what the Stipler said, who knows was the Stipler going. This was Rabbi Yaakov Kanievsky. He was the father of the Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Big tzaddik he was, Baal Ruach HaKodesh. So they asked him one time like this, what is the biggest mitzvah today, in this generation? The biggest mitzvah the person can do. So you know what he told them? The biggest mitzvah is to help the Jews who came out of, Russia, from Soviet Union. Why? Because they don't know nothing, these people. The communistim, they took away the yeshivot, they took away everything. They don't know nothing, these people. They're miskenim, they're very disadvantaged, So he says the biggest mitzvah is to teach these people Torah, to bring them back to the teshuvah. That's the biggest mitzvah of the generation. It's exactly what we said. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen amen. Rabbi Chaim Shomer, עשה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזוגות ישראל, לפיכך הכי בא להם תורה ומצוות שנאמר אדוני חפץ, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר.